JJ, good spot
Ryan,
on
how you
Stinchfield
doing?
tonight. I'm doing good. Very busy, hectic, crazy. I'm not going to say it's the apocalypse because it's never the apocalypse until you stop fighting. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you? You're just real busy today, huh?
Well, real busy. You can see I'm not in my normal studio because, we both had a bunch of stacked appearances, both Naomi Wolf, my wife, and I. So she took over my studio because it was set up, and I just threw something together here. So Um, it's kind of like this. It's the guest room, which always becomes a storage room. So that's news today. That's legacy. That's the new legacy news, and I love it. We'll look back on this time. We'll be in the history books, and people say, "Wow, I remember when."
I remember when you had orange flowered curtains behind you,
I
and
don't
then
even
boom,
know.
we're in giant studio making. Well, you know what? I don't really care what it is, as long as we can get what we want to
Get
talk
the
about
information
out,
up.
because I think it's important, and I think we're two dudes that have been there and done it, and we're not two talking heads from academia, which are fine. But I want when I listen to when I want to find out more or very in depth about something I'm very curious about or want to have more research, I want to talk to the guys that were down there. I want guys to tell me what it sounds like, smells like, looks like, feels like, and that's what I want. I think that's what you and I can give, especially tonight on what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are new, this is mostly peaceful. This is a daily clout production or column. My co-host and I'm his co-host as well. We're equal hosts as equity here. Actually, equality, technically equality. But
Quality and
JJ Carroll
diversity.
is. Oh, God.
No, go ahead. I'm just joking.
Career border agent and just really a tactical. I would say intelligence wise, a tactical or stractical expert on what's going on. And stractical is a term we used to use for tactical, understanding the tactical and the strategic, meaning the how this is affecting nationally, internationally,
Mm-hmm.
and what's actually happening operationally, like on the border in his case. I'm telling you all this because if you're new to the show, uh, JJ's not some dude, that I, that I met at the farmer's market or something. He knows his stuff. And then my own background is, for those of you who don't know, is career intelligence analyst, expert, whatever you want to call it. And I've 11 years special forces intelligence, followed by a couple of agencies. And then I even did some international competitive intelligence. In some cases, I was even called an industrial spy, which I guess technically that's not incorrect, but not illegal. Anyways, the point of all that is when we look at these things, the border, what's going on in Israel, how it affects the border, because that's very important. Um, we're coming at it from that area. So we don't know everything. No one does. And we're welcome and open to your comments as long as we just ask that you're civil to the other guests and be civil to us. We'll be civil back to you. If you're a jerk, I'm going to boot you. I don't believe in free speech for trolls. Um, so with that said, we're going to jump right into it. JJ is going to lead most of this show. We're not going to go the full 2 hours tonight just because there's so much going on. We are going to be covering shocking stuff that JJ was just on Stinchfield tonight talking um, about who's coming through the border, and I'll try to get these pictures up if I can of just who JJ is talking about as he talks about them. So JJ, you've got the floor, man.
Well, I went on Stinchfield tonight, a Real America's Voice. He's great. He's like a patriot when it comes to border issues and border patrol agents, and it's very important. I'm not saying I'm the mouthpiece for agents. There's a gentleman that runs a podcast called and a website called Old Patrol HQ. His name is Gil Maza, and he does a lot of in-depth things with agents. And the morale in the Border Patrol does not exist. Suicides are record highs. They feel demoralized. They're resentful. They're doing things against their oath they swore to uphold. And that over time will eat at a man and a woman. Uh, when you swear an oath, it has some incredible value to it. And when you are forced to do, acts against that sworn oath, that makes things even worse. I've had an incredible afternoon and a frustrating afternoon, probably one of the most frustrating times in investigating immigration, even in living in the Border Patrol. And this is why. I got my sources contacted me through various ways. And a guy from the interior texted me and emailed me and said, hey, man, we are now looking at dockets, meaning the immigration dockets where people get put on to go see an immigration judge, that we're over 6 million now. And it took me a second I know that under Biden's 34 months in office, he's arrested over 7 million individuals, okay? They have released almost all of them. So 6 million, 6.5 million is not shocking. But what I discovered today was shocking. And this is what was so shocking to me was I get that information from a person within ICE. So I call a couple sources of ICE supervisors. And I said, hey, I'm getting a lot of information that's saying that 6.5 million people are called non-detained or unassigned. Can you walk me through that? Because they changed the verbiage quite a bit in DHS. And in the discussion, I was told non-detained docket are people that have court dates or might not have court dates, and we're monitoring them, but we're really not monitoring them. And there's a subgroup of that, millions of people that we have them in unassigned category. And I said, okay, well, what does unassigned mean? And I said, tell me in layman's terms, what does this mean? And the ICE supervisor who runs task force, and he's very successful and professional in this field. And he said, JJ, unassigned means we have no idea who they are or where they're at. Like they're just gone. And I was like, okay, that's disconcerting. Like I know this is happening, but when you start to understand the minutia of how it happens. So while I'm having this discussion, I say to the ICE supervisor, okay, sir, you have 6.5 million people. Who's monitoring them? And he says to me, well, we're not monitoring all of them. A large portion of that is Border Patrol. Border Patrol monitors the people they release. And I went, okay, whoa, no, I've never heard that. When did you start doing that? And they said, well, now Border Patrol, when they release people, they monitor them. And I said to my ICE guy, let's just call him Joe. I said, Joe, they don't even have enough Border Patrol agents to secure the border. I mean, 80% of the border is unprotected at any given time during the day. There's nobody that's going to monitor them. So I said, hey, let me do some research. I'm going to call you. And I always wall these guys off. And I know I was going to call a couple more guys. Pick up the phone, call it. Another Border Patrol supervisor he's like the cream of the crop guy, like policy, law, leadership, everything dialed in. And we'll just call him Mike. And I said, Mike. And I never even said anything about what ICE agent said to me. I said, Mike, tell me what you're doing with people that you're releasing. And he said, okay, somebody comes in, we release 550, 5,000, 10,000. I will street release them, or I will turn them over to non-governmental organizations, Catholic Charities, Lutheran Family Services, all those corrupt organizations. And I said, okay, and then what happens? He says, well, then I take all of their biographical data and I put it in a spreadsheet and send it to sector headquarters in San Diego. And I said, okay, so they have a spreadsheet. Now, this is tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in San Diego. We're not even talking about the epicenter of Texas and Arizona. Okay, well, who monitors the people that San Diego left? And he said, JJ, nobody does. There's zero accountability. So when you understand, you have 7 stations now in San Diego sector, over 2,000 agents, 7 stations, 1 sector. sector may have 50, maybe 50 agents, and they're all public information, administrative people. Then the chief is there with his underlings. So it's like 50 people, tops. How does 50 people monitor 1 million people in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles? I mean, how are you? So when I say monitor, what I mean is when somebody can just randomly pick out of the million, a spreadsheet that has 1 million people on it from San Diego sector, I should be able to go and plug into illegal alien 957,237. Boom. Jose Guadalupe. Oh yeah, he's at this residence. I'm going to call him right now. Hey, how you doing? Where you at? Do you see the absurdity of that? 50 people are going to manage 1 million people? So I said back to the Border Patrol agent, okay, well, what happens to the ICE? I mean, do you contact ICE and let them know? And he says, no, JJ, everything has changed. We are now street releasing or given to NGOs, and it doesn't matter which way we go on those choices. They all just abscond into America, never to be seen again. I call my ICE supervisor back and I say, okay, you're correct. This is what's happening. Do you monitor ICE? I mean, do you monitor Border Patrol apprehensions when they release them? And he says, no, we don't. We have no idea what Border Patrol's doing. And I said, okay, so you have probably 3 or 4 million of the 6.5 million. How many, what part of your department is monitoring these 4 million people? Let's just say it's 6 million that have been released to make it easy math for everybody. Border Patrol's doing 2, maybe 3 million. You're doing 4. What department is doing the monitoring and checking up and welfare checks and on and on and on? And he said, well, deportations officers do that. And I'm like, deportation officers? Are you, what? I said, okay, well, how many are there? He says there's about 1,500. So I said 1,500 deportation officers have solid account of 4 million people. And he just said to me, JJ, I know you're frustrated and angry, but there's no accountability. This is all a smoke and mirrors game. And then I was able to piece together, like, okay, so you understand, you have the Department of Homeland Security, the largest, encompasses the largest. You have DOJ, FBI, Secret Service, Treasury, everything's under this giant umbrella. Inside that giant umbrella is Customs and Border Protection. Under that umbrella is 2 major entities, like the 2 biggest entities of CBP are Border Patrol and ICE. Prior to this administration, the goal was always to work together, always to know what ICE is doing. ICE knows Border Patrol. We work task forces together. We're sharing information, smuggling cartels, drug cartels, on and on and on. Now, CBP has basically built a wall between the Border Patrol and ICE. They have no idea what the other is doing. And as everyone I spoke to, and I spoke to journeyman agents, to managers in Border Patrol and ICE, and they all said the same thing to me. JJ, America has no idea what is going on. And he said, they all said, we are in such danger and peril because the people we're releasing are special interest aliens, terrorists, soldiers, criminal aliens, prior deported felons. And we're releasing them and nobody knows where they are. This makes sense when you look 3 weeks ago to the Inspector General, they call him the IG of DHS. Think of when you're watching cop movies, the IG is basically like internal affairs, IA and sheriff and police department, okay? They're doing all the overseeing. They're watching the watchers, okay? They came out with a special report and they plucked out about little less than 1 million arrests between an 8 or 10 month period in 2021 to 2022, somewhere in there. And they picked out 1 million and they found basically ICE and Border Patrol could not tell them where any of those people were. That was a sampling. And the IG's report stated, I'm going to paraphrase, that CBP under Border Patrol and ICE, covering Border Patrol and ICE, do not have the capacity, the ability, the technical know-how in order to monitor these people. So basically what the IG was saying is what I'm saying today, that there is no oversight. You have 6 to 6.5 million people in America illegally. DHS says 2 million more absconded into America. That's a lie, but let's just use their number. We're at 8.5 million per their number in 34 months. And now all of my sources now are texting me and saying, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. There is a lot of chatter on how we are going to take in tens of thousands of Palestinian refugees.
JJ, to put a little, because it's even for me and I was in the government, I find Department of Homeland Security very confusing. And as I remember, I was there when it stood up, which is, by the way, sidebar. You mentioned the spreadsheets for tracking all these, illegals. When they first stood up, I was working for a consulting firm. I got sent over to DHS, and I think at the time it's called the IAIP. That was like their intelligence wing. This right after 9/11.
Yeah.
And so I went over and I was to help them set up their intel operations, just management. And I said, well, where's your database? And they had a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
They were using Excel as a database for Department of Homeland Security. So anyways, can you explain where, how ICE and Border Patrol, everything fits in? I get confused by it. So I've never worked for DHS except for that one contract. But if you would just kind of explain the layout, I'll try to share my screen. I got an org chart in the link here in the banner.
Well, here's and DHS is a monstrosity, and we all thought it was going to get better, but it got worse under DHS. INS was a debacle, right? It was the Immigration Nationality Service. That's what I fell under. Border Patrol fell under the first several years of my career, and they were a boondoggle. But DHS is so powerful, and this is one of the ways that they conceal their nefarious activities inside the monstrosity of DHS through policy, not law, through policy. They do change law. They do manipulate and bastardize law, but the way they do it is they destroy policy and reimagine, use their term, reimagine policy, right? It's absurdity. So when you look at the Customs and Border Protection, we call it CBP, it's umbrella. So what you'll have under CBP are, like I said, two main entities, ICE and Border Patrol. And in Border Patrol are basically all the men and women that are working the southern, northern border and the coastlines, okay? And ICE is supposed to be interior agents, meaning people that abscond from the Border Patrol or in jail and then are released, or criminal aliens in the community. They go and they literally hunt them down throughout the nation. And then within ICE, you have enforcement and removal officers. They go and find people as well and do all the transport, and deportation officers are the officers that are flying across the globe, removing in special interest aliens and other than Mexicans all throughout the world. All of that is shut down. All of it is now totally focused on processing and releasing aliens. So if you can imagine, I try to explain when people try to visualize, I want you to think of ICE facilities and Border Patrol holding facilities. They are temporary, like when you would see in police drama shows, they put them in the small cells, and then they have the open cell where you could probably put 30, 40 people in. Think of that, okay? So let's take where I used to work in Imperial Beach. We have, I want to guess that the holding capacity was like 175 people. You have 500, 600 people in there, 700, 800 people in there, and you have 1,000 out in the field waiting to be brought in. You have Texas, you have 1,500, 2,000, 4,000 people living under a bridge, and you're having to bring them into your facility, and they're churning out over 1,000 illegal aliens a day. It's impossible to vet, to thoroughly check people. And so there is this overwhelming pressure to move them out as fast as you can. So as somebody's brought in, and I find out the guy's from Uzbekistan, he's a special interest alien, I try to identify if he's a terrorist. I don't have time. I push him out the door. We release everybody. ICE is supposed to, as in real times prior to Biden, Brian, I would arrest, or I would lose, we call getaways, I would lose a drug load or a smuggling load, and I would get the plates on the vehicle, or I arrested someone who was able to interrogate, and then I would able to take that data and give it to ICE agents, and they were investigators in the field. They would track down load houses, stash houses, and they would hit those, seize them, do all of that. They would handle that. Border Patrol was very forward looking of securing the actual border. ICE was taking care of all the interior stuff. And when Trump was in office, I would talk to ICE guys and say, what's the difference between Trump and then when Obama? He says, we would drive down the street and look at illegal aliens. And these are Border Patrol agents too. And in the interior, and they would all flip us off and curse at us because they knew that we couldn't do anything to them because of Obama's prosecutorial discretions. And they said, now when they see our markings, people are running and hiding, and we're chasing everybody. So the whole dynamic of American sovereignty and rule of law and repercussions for your criminality, there was power to that. Now there's nothing. You have Border Patrol agents and ICE agents that are defying the oath they swore to protect. And they're doing unconstitutional, unlawful orders. And everyone that is being, it's hard to articulate this more clearly. Everybody that crosses the border is released. And again, in my 23 years, my last year was under Biden, 23 years in the United States Border Patrol, every individual that I arrested, and indirectly and directly, which I believe is well over 10,000, I released 0 people. It was unheard of.
Well, JJ, let me ask
huge.
Let me ask you a question that's popping into my head as you're talking about this. You know, every time we talk, I start thinking, why are we paying people to be Border Patrol with all this great training, good men and women, who are there with a special skill set? Mm-hmm. And it's a very tough job, and as you can tell anyone, and I do highly recommend people read JJ's book, Invaded. We'll pop the link up there for you in a second, because it really gets into the grit and the granular details of just what his life was like for 24 years, right? Yeah. So with that said, are they being DHS? Is the government increasing or decreasing new hires for these positions? They're decreasing.
Everyone that's on that. As you get closer to retirement, you're just ticking down. You have formulas and equations you use to tell you when it's time to leave. People are just ticking.
Are they phasing out Border Patrol or trying to?
No, they're trying desperately to. They have hiring bonuses, I believe, up to 35,000. Nobody's.
But why? But why would they want them? No one's.
Because there has to be somebody, Brian. There has to be a mechanism in place to be able to make that transition from people coming in the country and moving them. As crazy as that sounds, right?
And just I want more border agents. I want the border back. I want it secure. This is a sovereign nation, and it's not a sovereign nation without borders, of course, as you know.
Well,
go ahead.
Here's something else that I heard straight from a source on the firearms defensive tactic training facility in San Diego. They're now cutting they only run day shift now, so there's no swing shift. So that takes half of the agents that can go to firearms qualification, defensive tactic training. So guys are not getting any ongoing training, and
are they turning them into administrators?
Yes, no one's doing anything law enforcement wise. Nobody. They're just processing. Wow. It's hard. It's just hard. It's heartbreaking for me as a guy that loved my job and saw incredible value, and you had to have courage and integrity to do that job, and now they've just destroyed it. And again, you and I have talked about this, Brian. This is the intentional destruction of America through the immigration system.
And I was going to say as and I certainly don't want to minimize, the impact on border, careerists, and especially you. But this is terrifying. I mean, with what's going on, not just in Israel, people forget, like, we armed the Taliban, the new Taliban, when we left Afghanistan. If people recall August 15, 2021, those were all new weapons. They tried to make them look scattered, but if you zoom in on those Humvees and everything, they still have those little fibers on the tires. Those were all new. We armed them, and they're the best armed army now in that area.
Yep.
And they're pouring over. And as we're about to talk about, and I want to say something else. What terrifies me as well is, and a lot of people don't understand this. I spent the majority of my career doing counterterrorism work, up until the time bin Laden was killed. And what a lot of people don't realize about pretty much all terrorist organizations, they're labeled regional, but they're really not regional. They're international. And if you look at Taliban was coming into Afghanistan before August 15th with uniformed Pakistani soldiers and operating out of Pakistan. Of course, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, these have always been international organizations. You look at Hamas and Hezbollah, and people like, up in Lebanon, these ones are in Palestine. Well, there is no Palestine, so they can't be there. But the point is, they're borderless. So there's no comfort. People say, only people from this country are coming. It doesn't freaking matter, because if you recall, after 9/11, there were not only terrorists in London and, of course, in the United States and all over the world, but there's also zealots. Okay, and I'm not talking about religious zealots. I won't give any terrorist that title and elevate them. I'm just talking idiots who want to get the attention of the larger organization, as they've done their part, that kind of nonsense. And if you remember the London train bombings, these guys had very loose affiliations to Al-Qaeda. One was an art student. I mean, they were based there. But that's what happens. They're, hey, look at me. It's that kind of thing. So with that said, JJ, can we go right into these two these two people that came across the border? Let's talk about them. I'm going to throw throw their picture up. This is, and by the way, this was shocking when JJ sent me this today. So let's talk about do you want to talk about the general first?
Let's talk about the first one I sent you, Musafir.
Okay.
So this gentleman I got from a source in San Diego Sector Border Patrol that said, hey, JJ, just so you have on your radar, we got this guy a couple weeks ago. And let's talk about him first. I'm going to tell you how he crossed. So his name is, you'll be able to do it better than mine, Abdul Qayyum Musafir. Is that how you say it?
Abdul Qayyum Musafir. Pretty good.
Musafir, yep. From Afghanistan. You'll be able to pull his picture up?
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up right now.
Okay.
But keep talking, please.
So this is my buddy sends me this and says, hey, I just want you to know I'm looking down on my phone. That's why I'm looking down as I'm reading what he said. Hey, JJ, a couple weeks ago, a legit upper echelon ISIS terrorist. He said he was just chilling on Spooner's Mesa. That's a flat in Imperial Beach Station near the Pacific Ocean. He said FBI scooped him up because the CIA had him captured. And he is a legitimate top-level ISIS recruiter. Now, let me explain. Brian and I talked about this, and this is what was really caught my attention. Not that he's a terror. These people are here by the tens of thousands, okay, people? Audience, I want you to know that. Is the way he crossed. So this man is a known. He knows that he's on the FBI's terrorist watch list. He knows wherever he's found, people know who he is, right? This guy crosses the border and then just sits on American soil waiting for the Border Patrol to come arrest him. Now, this is a man that's a known terrorist, comes on the border and just sits there. All he had to do was go about another 10, 20 miles to the east with a smuggler to move him through the border undetected. No one would have ever known he would have crossed. But he decided, I can get away by just coming and squatting. That made me, and I told Brian, my first instinct was that means people like him at that high level have already crossed in that area and have been released. And they called back and said, don't worry about it. They're so overwhelmed, they're just releasing us. But he got caught. That's what's scary. We caught this guy. He's an ISIS head recruiter. I'm telling you, tens of thousands of these men are already in America.
And this guy, and I found some stuff on him. I'll put it up later. He's hard to find. This guy's old school, man. This guy's former Mujahideen as well, which means he was kind of trained by us in some ways. So for those who don't know Afghanistan that well, Mujahideen predates Taliban. Okay, so Mujahideen was mainly fighting the Russians when they invaded Afghanistan. And then from Mujahideen came the Taliban. And we had, and through that all, that's where Osama bin Laden really got his rise. And that's a subject for another day. I know a lot about it. Maybe I'll do a separate thing about that. But the point is, this guy's hardcore. I mean, he's born in 1963. He's been around the block. And look, if you're this guy in his line of work and you're still alive at that age, you're a tough hombre. And when I see, and I think that's what haunted me, is knowing these groups the way I do. I'm less worried about young men coming through. They're a problem, but these are the commanders. Like, that means a big operation is going down. This guy's not running. A guy like this, if he's seeking asylum, or kind of like we take in Russian senior spies and officers back in the Cold War, that was arranged. They were flown in. They were VIPs. I've met some of those guys, and they're living well. You're not coming through the border. Okay, you're not coming through the border. But like you said, the fact that these guys are smart enough and they understand the entirety of intelligence operations, military operations, they've studied us. They know that they have nothing to worry about in terms of detainment. They might get detained, but as we talked about earlier, and you just said, they know they're getting out. They're not worried about it. And when someone like, Musafir here is running around in this country, I mean, this is going to make that Chuck Norris movie Invasion USA look like a theme park ride. This is serious. This is beyond serious stuff. I mean, anyways, there's him. I'm going to go to the next one, JJ, and I'll let you talk about him.
So we just talked about that man prior crossing on a place called Spooner's Mesa. Well, another known terrorist came across and squatted in the same place just recently, and he's in Border Patrol custody as we're speaking right now. And this man, I'm going to read what my buddy said. He goes, this guy killed a bunch of Taliban for us. He was handled by the CIA. He is the cousin of former President Ghani, Ghani, of Afghanistan, was a senior security advisor, oversaw all security at the presidential palace, and a major general in the Afghan armed forces. Came here with his diplomatic passport. His passport read, senior advisor to the president of Afghanistan. And my buddy, who I trust completely, sent me a text right after that and said, it's insane, brother. We're going to pay a heavy price for this in the coming years. And he's right. This is not, Brian, you and I talked about this. This is no longer if this is going to happen. It's when and at what level of pain and suffering is America going to have to endure.
Well, this one's really, really interesting. So really interesting. This guy's a former brigadier general. He came up in some scandal where he accused, the government over there of sexual harassment or forcing sexual favors. And then there was a warrant out for his arrest. But, and my question for you, JJ, it may require more research. And I always welcome people in the audience to, jump in, do some research, help us out because, feel free to send that to, info@dailyclout.io. And just info in there, just say JJ, Brian, and then Afghan guy, whatever, just so it gets to us. So if you want to do and we'll present that after we fact check it. But when I see, there's a couple things here. So with this guy here, what's interesting is he was brigadier general. Then he had a warrant out for his arrest. Then he was assigned to the president of Afghanistan. And now he's been arrested again at our border. What the hell is he doing here? What
is he doing?
And this brings up another question too. Another thing I want people to think about. If you recall the fall of Afghanistan, where Biden and Milley, that giant pig with a uniform, the Afghan Defense Forces, which is their army, supposedly fell almost overnight to the Taliban. Now, I want people to think about this. We've all seen, if you're old enough, you've all seen what happens when you fall to the Taliban. They start dragging bodies through the street, putting them up on display. Anyone see any bodies at all of one Afghan soldier? I didn't. I saw when they found our equipment, all the uniforms they supposedly found of, U.S. military uniforms and things like the BDUs or battle dress uniform fit perfectly. The helmets fit perfectly. Those are not easy helmets to manipulate. If you've never used them, you take some time. They were all perfect. They were all holding their weapons with their fingers off the trigger the way in special forces we would train people the right way to hold a weapon. You normally don't see that with like Taliban and extremist or terrorist groups. So this guy who was part of the government now all of a sudden is surfacing on our border. What do you make of that, JJ? What do you think?
I just think that, okay, let's go back to April and May. So in the months of April and May, why that's important is the cartels, Imperial Beach, if you look at the map of the United States, you go to the southwesternmost point of America that goes right to Mexico, Pacific Ocean. That area right there, probably 2.5 miles east, is that Spooner Mesa, right? Spooner's Mesa we talked about. It's a flat area with fencing. That was the epicenter. That 1.5 mile area, mile to a half mile area, was the epicenter of all Middle Eastern single adult military age men from Middle Eastern nations and the continent of Africa were coming over the border at about 1,000 to 2,000 a day. So Border Patrol only had the capacity.
And when was this?
This was roughly? April and May.
Okay.
April and May, several weeks. And they were doing 50 known, or we have these computer, you put your fingerprints in red bars. So we call it a red bar. 50 individuals were red barring with terrorist alerts. 50 a day. So I reported on this. Grant Stinchfield had me on his show, and I did a couple higher end podcasts and were interviewed by several news and reputable news places. And I told them about this. And immediately they, on Mother's Day, May 14th, I believe it was. So imagine Mother's Day on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. Everyone, all the brass at Imperial Beach was called into the station. And at 2:00 in the afternoon, they went and they physically moved 2,000 people from one area of the border and marched them to the port of entry or soft-sided facilities because the media was flying drones and taking pictures of them. The Mexican military, who works in conjunction with the cartels and the American government, set up forces south of the border and moved all the other military-age adult men out. And they moved them to the mountains and the hills of California, the eastern part of California, where media couldn't easily get down on those trails. So they walk them in, load them up in buses, and move them out. So not only is this invasion not organic, it is orchestrated, strategically planned. I will submit to you with evidence and just knowing our government is in collusion with both the Mexican government and the cartels. Because when you look at the totality of months and months and months and months, 18 months to be exact, of the exact same amount of people crossing, that is a coordinated effort and a discussion between people of how to move a certain product and how many of those units. You have to think like a business. They're not looking at them as people. They're units that they're moving. How many units can I move and still have command and control over it? So our government is working with the cartels, and I stand by that.
Well, and I would not doubt it at all. I mean, with fentanyl, and I don't have the link ready, but I do know that when we shut down everything at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's more than the cartels. The cartels' primary ingredients for fentanyl are being supplied by China. And in part, specifically from Wuhan. And I'll find the DEA link and put this up. So, you don't have to believe me. You don't even have to believe the DEA, but I don't really care if you believe it. My thing is it's happening as far as we are certain, and we are certain. We've seen the deaths. We've seen the violence. I just posted a link right there about just one of many reports of these terror watch list people coming through. And I told JJ earlier, like at the beginning of the pandemic, they were censoring, like, I guess I have an automated system maybe that posts stuff from like Border Patrol onto Twitter, like, hey, we detained these people. These things would go up, and then you click on them, they're gone, and someone's taking them down. Like they didn't want people to know even back then. A couple were slipping through, but at least then we knew they were detained. That's why they were able to put them up. But then once Biden came in, you don't see. Oh, and that's another thing, JJ. I don't know if you mentioned it earlier. What you said earlier shocked me. I mean, I'm a hard guy to shock, and you're shocking me 15 times a night on this show, on this information, on this conversation. You had said earlier that something about how there's been no reports of Palestinians coming through the border in 3 years or something. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I had a phone call from investigative reporter from the Daily Caller and wanted to talk to me about the Palestinian refugees and Palestinians that have come over. And I said, you know what? I don't know. Like, I'll ask, but it's strange. I don't ever hear of that. And she says, just so you know, she called the Public Information Office at CBP in DC, as her contact is supposed to do, and said, hey, what are your data for Palestinian arrest. And the agent said, well, I'm looking at the last 3 years, and we have arrested 0, none, not one. So she was calling me saying, what do you think about that? And I said, number one, CBP and DHS has already been caught multiple times lying, had a FOIA request where they found to have hidden 221,000 illegal aliens through the airports, and CBP one out that they hid and didn't count. And they were forced to admit it. So if you think this week last week on Saturday, I think you had 2 people, nationals from Lebanon. You had 14 or 50 Syrian nationals. You had some couple from Yemen, 19 Iranians. So you're telling me all those people are coming, but nobody from Palestine that's bombed out, that live under terror, that are part of Hamas, they're not coming to America? I'm supposed to believe that? I mean, you have to be an idiot. But now I'm finding out, well, the American government doesn't recognize Palestine as a nation. They don't recognize them. Right. So my question back to my ICE people and my Border Patrol agents, hey, where are you putting them when you come into Palestine? And my guys are like, we don't even have a category for Palestinians. So what the government is doing, I know it, is they're recategorizing. They're saying, okay, well, you're from Lebanon or you're from Iran, right? You're not from Palestine. Isn't that amazing? Out of 195 nations on planet Earth, 175 of them have been represented in Border Patrol arrest, and not one of them is from Palestine. Am I really to believe that?
And it'd be interesting to see, like, especially if there's special interest, I would imagine, do they represent, because, Palestine's not a state, as you know, but do they, if they're a special interest alien, one of these terrorists that come through, do they at least designate like which organization they're suspected of being affiliated with?
Brian, there are, all of my sources tell me when they get a special interest alien, if JTTF does not take them, they're releasing them.
Right, I get that, but what I'm talking, like, the government has a form for everything.
No, so Brian, they don't have anybody to do the interrogation. So
I hear you, but in the past, prior to the assholery that is the slithery oatmeal brains, as Dan Bongino calls them, which is freaking hilarious and spot on. I wish it was a different time. We could have a good laugh about it. Biden, since this traitor has opened our borders, of course, there's no precedent for anything, but I'm sure, wasn't there, when you started your career and things were being managed better, surely there was a form for SIAs that says...
you put them in the database. Yeah, you put them in the DHS database, and it's there forever.
Okay, so would they on that database, was there a field to designate which group they might be affiliated with?
Yeah, there was all kinds of stuff, but the point that I'm trying to make, Brian, is there's a special group of agents that work for a task force called the Joint Terrorism Task Force, JTTF, FBI run, right? All those individuals would come to our station and do all the interrogation because they were trained for. They knew, like you knew you could speak Arabic, you could talk to them, you could narrow stuff down, find where they're lying. I don't know I'm not an expert at terrorism. So
I think they also could ask some questions that were based on classified information.
Yeah, that I'm not privy to.
Exactly.
Right? But now I'm being told they are so overwhelmed with these special interest aliens that JTTF will not come in and do the interviews, Brian, because they're so overwhelmed. Okay, let me give you an example.
I know Border Patrol is, but government Go ahead.
Okay, but think of this, Brian. Of course they're overwhelmed. They had 80,000 in FY 2023. They don't have those agents. I mean, you're talking about what, 2,000 miles with multiple Border Patrol sectors and the northern sectors.
No, I know they're overwhelmed. What I'm saying is the JTTF, my guess, and audience, please research, get it to us. Hell, we'll put you on camera if you want. Like, we're here to get everyone involved because we all have to do this. Everyone has to do this. No one can sit this war out, trust me. No. So the understanding, and the Border Patrol is of course overwhelmed, but knowing the way the JTTF works, my guess is that they've got them focused on frickin' Ukraine, Somalia, and Syria rather than the border itself. That'd be my guess. Not the Border Patrol agents, the JTTF, as I knew it. Mm. Or this be interesting. And I see Lev has joined us. He was our guest on the last show. Hello, Lev. Hello, Sin. Hello, Elise 57. Oh, yeah, good. Forming a little crowd here. I like it. Bunch of, this is our own. I'm going to rename this show the People's CIA. I love it. But I'm wondering if, just spitballing here, is it possible, and you may or may not know, maybe someone does, what was designated as the greatest danger to Homeland Security this year?
Besides white supremacists?
No, white nationalists.
White nationalists, yeah.
Yep.
Where are these white nationalists? That's an honest question. Where are they? Oh, that's it? Okay.
I'm a white nationalist. I'm white and I'm a nationalist.
Here's something I would like to just throw out there to you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
We just had travel warnings come out. You can't travel to Uzbekistan, Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
They're all here, Brian. We're told that we can't travel to nations that are represented in our arrest reports in the tens of thousands. I can't fly to Palestine, but you want to bring in 1 million Palestinians that hate America and they hate Jews. How?
Well, JJ,
how do we bring them in?
That's a great segue. And I'm gonna force the segue here because I got to stay on the clock tonight because I have to leave pretty soon. But look, let me address that a little bit. And again, I'm never fronting for any government, especially this clown show of a fake government running our country. I'll say this: we do know the government is very siloed, and we know that they put out these do not fly things. They always, overreach, I think, on the risk.
Yep.
So like what's coming out in the State Department travel advisories, it might take months for like other agencies to realize what's on that. Like even when I was, cleared and working every day, I never went to the State Department website. I didn't even know, until like maybe I was going to one of those countries. Right. So I don't believe that's anything more than just a bunch of siloed agencies that don't talk to each other. But keep in mind too, that's also political when they put a country on the do not fly list. And it's a great thermometer, for lack of a better term, or a great meter to see where we might have some activity about to happen, or we think activity is happening. But under this administration, I'm sure if we go to the Wayback Machine, you could predict when Russia was going to surprisingly bomb Ukraine just by seeing what was on the FAA, travel advisor or the flight ban list. Oh yeah, that's right. You could, because FAA banned flights over that area a year before this big surprise invasion by Russia. Yeah. Coincidence? I don't think so. But the segue I want to make is, the worst thing is, having an open border sucks and is beyond. That's an understatement. it could be the end of America. I mean, this is how
Right.
countries fall. This is how the Roman Empire fell when the Foederate eventually, rose up as the was it the Visigoths under, I think the famous leader was Alaric, and just like us, the Romans would go out. They'd see the Visigoths, forming up on the river outside of Rome, and they'd usually pay them off and give them some food. They're like, oh, they're back, and they didn't take it seriously. And it reminds me so much of what's going on now. Like the elites, the people with their heads in the sand, or the people that get their news from Alexa, CNN, or exclusively from Twitter, they're not taking this seriously. And the Romans didn't take this seriously. And then because normally they'd come in and they'd pay them, they'd kind of go away. And then one day this guy, Alaric, who was, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Foederate, and these were the people that were absorbed into the empire, the Roman Empire, and then, put in the army, made officers, that sort of thing. And that was how the Romans rolled towards the end. And so, I think they just did something like that in Michigan with cops. And a bunch of illegals are now police officers.
In Illinois, too.
Jesus. And so, God, people have to study history. So, Alaric, and this is from Thomas Cahill, or Cahill's, if I'm pronouncing it right, Irish writer. He wrote a great book called How the Irish Saved Civilization. Yes, I bought it because I'm Irish, but it actually turned out to be a very good book. But it talks about how the monks saved civilization by, saving the scrolls and the knowledge, the gained knowledge, and spiriting it off to the monasteries. Yeah. But as he tells in the beginning of this book, he starts it with the fall of Rome. And so, the Visigoths, they mass on the on Rome, and Rome sends out their emissaries, like, all right, go give them the food and go give them the gold, and they'll go away. And they present their terms to Alaric. Alaric was no fool, and he was trained by the Romans, knew how to fight, knew how to lead people. And he said, I'm going to make a deal for you. And he said, we're going to storm your city. We're going to storm your capital. We're going to take all of your gold. I'm paraphrasing. We're going to take all of your gold, all of your women, all of your slaves, all of your children, anything of value, we're taking it. All of your cattle, all of your food. We're going to come in. We're going to take it all. Those are our terms. And so the emissaries say, well, what does that leave us? And Alaric says, your lives. Yeah. The point is, we're close to that right now. And they didn't, you can imagine these guys didn't take it seriously until that moment. And that's the moment when it's too late. And unfortunately, I fear where they're, and again, this is not, to take hope from people. You have hope as long as you're protecting your home and you're always fighting. That's what I always say. Maybe I'm a hopeless optimist, but, I've got the combat experience. I've been in bad situations. I'm not speaking from the armchair. Now, what I will say is the problem is not only the border, the physical border of this country, but the problem we're seeing, and we saw this throughout the pandemic, is the ideological border, the infiltration, the subversion of this country, mainly with Marxist or socialist sentiment. And so let's talk about Israel. I'm sure everyone is floored. Actually, I'm going to put you back on, JJ, because I want to see, I love your reactions to this. It's shocking to me how quickly there's all these anti-Israeli protests. This is our NATO ally, okay? Yep. And Ukraine's not our NATO ally. And let that sink in. They're not our NATO ally. Mm-hmm. And you are getting deplatformed if you said bad things about Ukraine, but our NATO ally and our, the country that we ensured the security of, okay, that we promised the security of, and our other NATO allies did, in the wake of the horrible atrocities and attempted genocide of the Jewish people in World War II. And now all of a sudden we have Rashida Tlaib up there, talking about this bombing of the hospital, which even Hamas has confirmed was not done by the Israelis. They're saying the Israelis bombed this hospital, and she's still out there doing it. It's almost like They want a religious war. And then they pretty much kind of stormed, it wasn't the Capitol, but it was Cannon Hall, I believe. But no one's a terrorist. We're kind of used to that. Like, I'm not even going to dissect that. But JJ, have you wondered why these things pop up so quickly? So quickly. Think about BLM. 12 states simultaneously. And as my wife Naomi said, she's from the left. She was part of Occupy Wall Street. She looked at that and she said, sitting in our living room, we're in shock. You know, having been in a type of propaganda influence type job. I said, this is weird because all the font on those banners are the same. All those banners are professionally done. Mm-hmm. These aren't people spray painting stuff on sheets. This is like Kinko's type stuff. This is like Staples type banners. If you've ever done an event, you get your banner for your booth. This is what they look like. You're seeing right now ceasefire everywhere. I'm going to share my screen in a second, but you've noticed that, right? Like how quickly, like what,
it's planned. Days. It's all planned.
Yeah.
You can't tell me, Brian, the things that are happening across the globe are just coincidental. Like they're just happening. Well, this just happened in Israel. Well, that just happened in Ukraine. Come on. It's all together. It's all together, and it's all follow the money. It's all about the money.
Yeah. Well, let's follow that money really quickly because I promised. And you did ask me, you're like, JJ asked me like an hour before the show. And you get to try to find out where these protests are coming up. I'm like, I almost canceled the show. I'm like, I can't do it. I'm running out of time. Even my wife's like, no, you got to do it. I'm like, so, and then JJ's like, and uncover this plot in 45 minutes. I did. I did it. So here we go. I didn't really uncover it, but I did a job regarding Ruth sent us. And so I knew kind of where to go, but here's what we have. So I'm going to share a screen and everyone get out, as Bannon says, get out your number 2 pencil and write this down, but I will share all this and I'm going to put this into a good report. I haven't had a chance to write anything up, but here we go. So let me share my screen really quickly. And all right. So let me pull up this NPR, protest thing. Here we go. All right. So there's that. All right. So if you look at this, okay, don't look at the guy with the sweater. That's kind of silly. All right. So if you look at this article I just put up, right away you notice something. And this is how I look at media. And by the way, NPR was co-opted as everyone else. I had to go to legacy media because who else is going to cover the protests and nothing else? It's almost like people forgot innocent people, tons of innocent people, even babies, which is now confirmed, were massacred just less than a week ago. It's like now everyone's like, these poor, and don't get me wrong, I hate the thought of any innocent civilians getting killed. A lot of people over there don't want to be there. They're stuck there because Jordan, Egypt, Syria won't let them out. Won't let them out. So here we are. You got this NPR, which is, and they tell, okay, from Amman to DC, protests erupt for Palestinians following the Gaza hospital blast. Now, here's the thing. They kind of got ahead of themselves here because I guess it's almost like they knew that this hospital blast was going to happen. They probably did. They were probably told by Hamas, who ended up being the ones to blast their own hospital. Okay. And anyone could challenge me on that. You'll see. And, but so you got this typical, I'm sure if we research this picture right here, it's probably not even from, this year. It doesn't matter. That's typical. So then you go here to talk about the embassy in Beirut. So look at the signs. Okay. Now you go down here. That's stock footage. Okay. This is DC. All right. Look at these banners. Okay. These are not homemade banners. And this is the same thing BLM had. And everyone has matching t-shirts. All right. This is, as a military guy, I'm like, this is some damn good logistics. This is some great logistics support. How do we do it? So I saw that right away, and I'm focusing on, and you also notice it's a Jewish organization, supposedly, running this. So American Jewish organizations gather at the Capitol on Wednesday to criticize the Israeli government's overall policies in Gaza. Okay, so media's fun. American Jewish organizations. First of all, it's one organization. It's not organizations. It's one organization with sub-organizations. Let me show you what I found, JJ. And I do want that pat on the back because I busted out trying to find this stuff. But all right, so I went down here and I found, Jewish Voice for Peace. Okay, so Jewish Voice for Peace. Who are they? Well, let's find out. Let me see if this will pop up. Okay, let me share this screen here. Sorry, guys, I'm getting better at StreamYard, but all right, here we go. So I'm going to stop that share, and then I'm going to share a new one. And Lev, we really do need that course. I know you're in the audience, so you got to run us through this so we can be more efficient. But let me show you what I put together, pulled this off, and here we go. All right, so. Right window, and all right, there it is. Okay, so I went to, I love, for research, I really enjoy OneNote, call me old school, whatever. All right, so who's Jewish Voice for Peace? Well, let's take a look. Jewish Voice for Peace are these guys. These are anti-Zionists. Okay. And let me get this up here. Sorry, guys, because I know you can't see it. All right. So they're anti-Zionists, but what they really are is they're socialists. Okay, and they're kind of involved in a whole bunch of stuff. Like they went against Twitter, they went against Facebook. I mean, these guys have been around everything. I found their annual report on their website. So when you read through the website, if anyone's new to intel analysis or intelligence type work, there's a million things you could do. You can sit here and look at the whole website, go to Wayback Machine. Where I always start is I always go for something like this. I always find the financial report. So this is on most, you see up here, jewishforpeace.org report. This is on most nonprofits. All right. Now, when you go down through this, you start noticing it's like this place is like this organization. It's like bring your own sign day. They cover everything. And this is very typical. All right. So you see, it's very, when you look at this long enough, you realize these things all kind of look the same, right? It's always like this kind of girl, it's always this kind of sign. Like, and what's funny is if you look through the, these protests, and I used to live in DC, so I'd go down there and take pictures. The only person you see with this cardboard sign is the girl standing in front of the media. Everyone else has pre-printed signs. We don't know who's Jewish or Muslim anyways, because they all have masks on. How convenient. You get down further, none of this matters. This is just, okay, so then I like to say, okay, donate. How do we do this? How are we going to donate? I found the 990, which is the 990 is a publicly disclosed tax form for nonprofits. Amazingly, it's a 404 code at the IRS when you click on it. There's nothing there for 2021. How amazingly convenient. So I'm going to share the other OneNote again. Bear with me, JJ. And I'll tell you what I found here. So there it is. Okay. All right, window. All right. So back to this one. See, I'm getting good. It's like skiing. Just got to push yourself down the hill. All right. So here, what I found right away is, oh, there it is. They're with the Action Network. Have you ever heard of the Action Network?
Yep.
Uh-huh. So what is the Action Network, right? Well, The Action Network is literally on-demand protests. There's another one. That's with the Action Network, and I'm just getting started. For this, I'm going to keep it short, but so you're going to love this. In the Action Network, and next time I have these all in, you're going to see this. It's going to blow your mind. People that are used to this. So let me share that screen. There's got to be an easier way to do this. Okay. All right. So we're just going to go right to the site here. You're going to love it. You're going to hate it, but you're going to. All right. So what is the Action Network, right? Okay. So the Action Network, you go on here for whatever your cause is. It could be save the manatees. It doesn't matter. This is like the house in Vegas. Okay. They don't care what your protest is. And what this is this is literally, you can organize an entire movement for $10 a month. Petitions, events, fundraising, emails. Sounds pretty innocuous. Oh, wait. Whoa, who's that? You see it? But that's just nothing. So these are tools built by nonprofit organizations, advocacy organizations, large national organizations, political campaigns. It's all pretty innocuous, okay? But if you keep going through, and I will be getting the demo, and I will be sharing that, and I've got another demo I did for another one called Open Collective. But if you look at the fine print here, okay, they can literally do everything. So they can even get you protesters. They can get you your signs sent to Kinko's in the area, okay, and pre-printed, and then your protesters go and pick them up. Here's some of the tools, okay? Email, mobile messaging. Remember SCOTUS 6? That's when they protested outside. That was all done on Open Collective and Action Network. At the center of the Ruth sent us pro-abortion, I don't know what you'd call them, the people with the cowls. They were very dramatically trying to dress like the Handmaid's Tale. Well, Ruth Sent Us is actually a 3-person organization made on one of these collective type websites. 3 people. Okay. Wow. And it looked like tons of people, right? Well, Ruth Sent Us is not even really an organization. I'll get into that another time. If I have time, I'll do it tonight. But here, look, you go in here and you can do, let me see. Oh, yeah, here we go. This is the one. You see it? Yeah. What's an effective advocate? That's a protester. Okay. So you could basically set up your, these kind of look familiar to you guys? Climate, right? Yeah. BLM's in here too. BLM's in Open Collective. This is basically anything you want to do. You can basically start right here. And if you're curious, it's really not that expensive. So here's how this works. I want to be, I'm a socialist organization like Jewish Voice for Peace, which is a socialist organization. Can't get into it tonight, but I'll write it up and we'll talk about it. And I want to protest. Okay, I want to really mess up a bill, or really want to cause some destruction, some damage, because that's what socialists want to do in this country. And like I told Lev the other night, socialism, if you don't understand what it is, it's, in the most paraphrased way, it's like big government controlling more of your life. I always call socialism the lobby in the hotel called communism. All right. And so it's that step. So this is what you get for $10 a month. I'm going to try to increase that for you guys. Okay, the movement plan. Upload list, custom wrappers, automated ladders, fundraising pages without a tip jar. These are all online. Fully branded actions. That's your banners. Okay, that's your signs. Fully bannered API. This is, getting this across multiple websites. What's amazing about this is you don't even need to plan that far ahead to do this. And I'm going to do a live demo soon where I show how quickly you can set this up, how quickly you can do it. But you go in here, you can literally set this up in 20 minutes. Now, here's the scary part about that. They don't care if you're from another country. So if you really want us, and then there's a lot of you got to understand some mass psychology here. You send out all these automated tweets and everything like this, and people get really riled up because people are addicted to Twitter. Twitter, as an example, social media in general, really plays on short brainwaves. So anger, like those lust and rage and those kind of things. Those things produce adrenaline. Adrenaline is one of the most addictive substances your body ever encounters from within. And people want to be involved. Okay. People want to get into it. BLM was very successful because they played on that whole Joseph Campbell, like hero's journey thing where these kids are bored and they've never had the adventure. And that was the big crusade, much in the same way the Crusades were like ramped up. And I know I'm going to get a bunch of shit for that one, but I don't care. So anyways, we'll go into that another time. What I want to show you though is these organizations, they're all on here. Share this. Oh yeah, this is the other thing I found, and this is a little Google hacking to get this one. And let me see here. Okay, so let me get to that again. Yeah, here we go. All right, there it is. Okay, sharing. So I did a little Google hacking, and JJ, we did a crash course on this the other day, or like advanced Google searching. So I did a search. I'll type in the search right here. So actually I'm going to type in the search so people have it at home. Just plug this into Google. Bring it on the chat. SX. 5 minutes, okay. Sorry guys. Naomi Wolf is going live in 5 minutes, so I gotta get off. See that's true equity. But okay, so file type XLS, that's spreadsheet, and then I want site star.action network .org, and have fun with this and don't break anything, but you know. And a lot of people know how to do that. So anyways, guess what I found? What? You ready for this one? Here it comes. You ever wonder why these messages get spread out so much? Here's why. So, get back to, gotta go way too many windows open. Let me do this again. Okay. Stop sharing that one. Start sharing this one. And anyone in the chat, feel free to make fun of me, whatever you want to do. But if you do make fun of me, send me some instructions how to go through slides a lot quicker. I'll take your cheap abuse in return for some instruction. Okay, so sharing one more screen, and then JJ, I'm going to hop off. And if I don't know,
we can close it down for the night. That sounds good. I think we
okay, but let me show you this really quickly. This is on Action Network. Okay, do you see it? I don't know if you see it. What is that?
It's the email list.
It's a press list.
Oh, is it?
Yes, look, right up here. Statewide press list.
Oh.
That's available to you for $10 a month. If you just, this one's for Michigan. Yeah. Okay, and I guess now I'm going to have to do a Substack on this because there's a lot to cover. But you see that? Michigan Reporter, WILX. This is every single. And you get that when you go on and get these things, or if you just, do an advanced search and get it yourself. I'm going to share this. You're welcome to it. It's publicly available if you type in that little thing. And please spread the word. Share it with everyone. Can you believe this, JJ? So that's just scratching the surface. Do you see now how it gets up so quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then already tomorrow or today, they made this one. This is the Black Lives for, I'm sorry. Portland Jews demand ceasefire now. All of this instantaneously. Okay. It's not organic. It's organized. No, and we don't even know if it's organized within this country. I will share all this. JJ, I got to go.
Good. We're out. Thanks we got a quick hour and a half in. That's awesome.
We did. An audience, I will address your comments. I'm going to save them all so I can address them all. Sin O, Alice, Alice 57, Lev, of course, everyone who joined us again. Thanks for having our backs. Please share this with your friends. We love having you here. We will make time for you next time. I do apologize about the rush. Both JJ and I'm impressed. JJ was just on national TV and hopped right on. And I actually had a suit on. And then I saw he had that on, so I took mine off. I didn't want him to upstage me. So,
oh gosh. All right. Take care. Hey, great work finding that out. It's amazing. We need to dive into that because that is a major story of
it's crazy.
This is happening. All right.
Okay. All right, guys. Everyone, take care. Stay safe. More to follow. Right. And remember, Brian O'Shea SPI at Brian O'Shea SPI, and then at JJ Carroll 14. And you can find us at dailycloud.io.
Yep. Have a good night. Thank you.
Stay free.